Fertilizer prices remain a major concern for farmers. President Trump's executive order suspending duties on phosphate may offer some relief, but it's short-lived. In this special episode of Kernels, we examine what's driving the skyrocketing cost of fertilizer and explore what it'll take to bring prices back down. Welcome to Kernels. I'm Tad Nicholson. Fertilizer prices remain a major concern for farmers, and finding solutions remains a top priority for Ohio corn and wheat. In today's episode, we're putting the focus on the farm, hearing directly from farmers about the impact years of high fertilizer prices have had on their operations, and we'll take a closer look at what needs to happen to even the playing field for American farmers. Ohio Corn and Wheat's Gary Puckett has more.
Every farmer knows the financial pain of buying fertilizer, but what has many growers concerned is that the cost no longer seems to follow the normal rules of supply and demand.
There used to be predictability in the fertilizer markets. There were supply and demand principles that made sense. Today, you can't say that.
Prices spiked during the pandemic, but while many other costs eventually came back down, fertilizer stayed high. For farmers trying to pencil out a crop, that raised a bigger question.
My concern started in February 2023 when I had ordered and purchased fertilizer from my co-op. I got about halfway through the purchase order and they'd run out of phosphate. And they said, well, we'll have to substitute MES, which is a 40% phosphate, for MAP, which is a 52% phosphate. And I said, as long as the price per unit of phosphate's the same, it's fine with me. And they said no. So I checked with two other terminals on the Ohio River. All three of them had run out of fertilizer the same week, of MAP fertilizer. So they were basically controlling the price and controlling the supply.
That experience led Clinton County farmer John Settlemeyer to dig deeper. Through conversations with growers across the country, he learned that the problem was not isolated to just Ohio.
I met growers from all across the country, 23 states, and everybody has a regional issue with their fertilizer prices. Restricted supply, higher prices. They run out of product in the middle of the season. So a common story from Texas to Iowa to Colorado to Georgia to Ohio.
At the center of the concern is market concentration. Farmers and farm organizations say there are only a handful of major players controlling the key nutrients farmers rely on, such as potash, nitrogen, and phosphate.
It's time to wake up, and it's time to think longer term. Fertilizer prices have gone up 150% in the last 10 years. Why is that? It's the same product that we bought 10 years ago. The mines haven't changed.
Recently, phosphate has become a major focus because farmers are pushing to remove the countervailing duty on fertilizer from Morocco, which helped drive up the prices in the U.S. President Trump's recent executive order provides some temporary relief, but it does not permanently end the case. Mosaic and Simplot are still asking for the federal government to keep the 2021 duty in place on phosphate from Morocco and Russia, and to raise that duty on Moroccan phosphate from about 16.6% to just over 20%. Ohio corn and wheat and farmers across the country argue that these duties reduce competition and add costs to an input they can't do without.
I think it's important to note that a countervailing duty is a fancy way to say tax or tariff. All those three could, for this purpose, be used interchangeably. It just, the result of a countervailing duty or a tariff or a tax is it's going to increase the price of whatever is being shipped into the United States.
That is especially frustrating for farmers because they sell into one of the world's most transparent markets, where prices are visible to everyone. But when it comes to fertilizer, they say it's much harder to understand pricing strategy, even as growers in other parts of the world, such as Brazil, often pay less for the same product.
American farmers are paying a premium for our fertilizers compared to the rest of the world because of these import duties. And it's equivalent to about $150 to $200 a ton more for farmers to buy fertilizer from a U.S. company than that same U.S. company exports phosphate to South America in the off-season. And I just think that's wrong.
That price disparity adds up, forcing farmers like Scott Hare and Clark County to make difficult on-farm decisions, cutting back, delaying applications, altering fertility plans, or depleting soil nutrient levels they've spent years building up.
We can only rob Peter to pay Paul for so long. So, we're working with a soil bank of phosphorus. We have the ability to maybe forego a little bit for a little while, but we're also aware that agronomically, we can't continue to mine our soils without affecting our crop production.
That added pressure is coming at an already difficult time. Commodity prices remain low, margins are tight, and many growers say they are burning through equity just to keep operating.
We're in a situation now where it's hard to pencil a profit in grain production. Oh, there's absolute fear in the farming industry. The problem is that everybody's operating at a loss today.
That's why Ohio Corn and Wheat and other corn organizations are pushing the issue in Washington, D.C. and across the country, not waiting for change but demanding it. Calling for greater transparency, stronger competition, access to the global fertilizer market, while urging federal leaders to take action and deliver reform.
We just want fair treatment, and we want to have access to the same raw materials, the same price as our global competitors.
Earlier this summer, progress was made at an event in Texas that brought together more than 100 farmers from 18 states, including Ohio. Federal Trade Commission Chairman Andrew Ferguson listened to concerns raised by growers, setting the stage for a major announcement.
I assure you, the FTC is prioritizing protecting you and your livelihood. If we find that anyone has broken the antitrust laws and victimized our farmers through anti-competitive behavior, I will not hesitate to act.
The FTC is also asking farmers, retailers, and others connected to the fertilizer market to share what they know. That includes retailers who often work directly with fertilizer manufacturers and may have important insight how fertilizer is priced, sold, and supplied.
The retailers don't want to say anything because they don't want to jeopardize their contracts. They're well aware of this. They've tried to talk to many of them, and they understand there is a healthy fear by retailers. And so what they did was create an anonymous tip line. The chairman looked at this audience of 100 farmers and said, we're going to protect you.
The investigation is only the first step. What they say they need is a fertilizer market that works the way it should, with more competition, more transparency, and better access to global supplies.
Short term, repeal CVDs. Long term is take a more critical look at the supply chain and how the manufacturers' relationships with the retailers work, and try to restore some sense of competition in the free market.
And now the concern is starting to move beyond fertilizer. Bayer has petitioned for new duties on glyphosate imports from China, raising concerns that another key input could become more expensive for farmers. Add that to year after year increases in fertilizer and other production costs.
We're going on about three, and for some farmers, 4 years of sustained low margins on the farm. That's not sustainable for very long.
This is bigger than fertilizer. It's about keeping American agriculture competitive and making sure the United States can continue to grow and protect its own food supply.
Food supply is national security. A hungry population is a dangerous population. So as a society, we have got to keep our food production in business.
The FTC is now asking individuals and businesses with relevant information to come forward, including those who may be concerned about speaking up publicly. If you or someone you know has information that could help this investigation, please do not hesitate to share it. You can contact the FTC directly at fertilizercomplaints@ftc.gov, and your information will be handled confidentially. Coming up, protecting your crop from vomitoxin. What new research is revealing this growing season?
Every business makes its own path, and every future comes with tough decisions. Whether you're planning for tomorrow, protecting the people you love, or building something meant to last, you deserve advisors who understand your world. At Element, we know your business is personal. We take the time to listen, to learn what matters most, and to protect what you've worked so hard to build. Let's take the next step together. Visit elementrisk.com today to get started.
Ohio Corn and Wheat, working on behalf of farmers.
Ohio Corn and Wheat has some vital roles in helping the profitability of Ohio corn farmers.
Ohio Corn and Wheat's role in creating the next generation of successful farmers is bringing those farmers together.
It's important for farmers all across Ohio to get involved with Ohio Corn and Wheat just because they are farmer-led and it lets our voice be heard.
Experience the Ohio Corn and Wheat Growers Association. Join or renew your membership now at ohiocornandwheat.org.
It's one word that can strike fear in a corn farmer: vomitoxin. Over the past few years, Ohio Corn and Wheat has made vomitoxin mitigation a priority. Through Ohio Corn Checkoff Investments, we're working with the leading researchers at The Ohio State University to better understand how vomitoxin develops, how farmers can manage their risk, and what tools may help prevent losses in the future. Today, we're joined by Dr. Pierce Paul to talk about what new research is telling us, what growers should be watching for this season, and what advancements may still lie ahead in the fight against vomitoxin. Dr. Paul, thanks for joining me today.
Good morning, happy to be here and happy to share some of what we've learned and progress we've made in terms of the fight against vomitoxin. Indeed, it is one of the biggest problems facing our growers, and it's one that, like you said, raises fears in growers for all the consequences it may have on corn production and downstream utilization of grain. Thanks to support from Ohio Corn and Wheat, we have had made significant progress in terms of our understanding of the disease and making strides in the right direction in terms of mitigating the problem. The intent here is not to prevent or eliminate the problem completely, but to mitigate it to levels that are less concerning. Among the many things we've done over the last couple of years, this project was funded. We've got 2 years completed, and we are in the third year of the project. Among the many things we've done is we've validated risk assessment models to help farmers predict when this is likely to be a problem. And the other significant accomplishment is we've screened multiple hybrids over the last couple of years and identify hybrids with low levels of susceptibility to the disease. These are the two major strategies to mitigate this problem. Get back to planting more resistant hybrids. One of the reasons why it's become a problem over the last few years is we're planting more and more susceptible hybrids. Since we haven't seen the disease and the mycotoxin in so many years, farmers have defaulted to using hybrids that are not necessarily the most resistant. We found in our study, you can still plant the best yielding hybrids with the best quality traits, and still get good vomitoxin resistance. Our screening effort, we can find that information on the web.
So you've had how many years of screening in the OSU yield trials?
So this is the third year of screening, but since we do it at 3 locations each year, I typically call it 9 environments. In other words, 3 environments each. One year we lost 1 environment of data, but it's multiple environments. So years doesn't always mean calendar years, but environments is what's most important to see how consistent these hybrids are.
So most seed companies cover a lot more area than just Ohio. So when the sales representatives hear Ohio farmers talking about vomitoxin and making that part of their decision process, that's a positive. They're going to raise that up to the national leaders within these multinational companies, and I think that's going to be one of the important things. The one thing that you have kind of coached us to do is just make that a part of every farmer's buying decision. That conversation with their seed salesman needs to have vomitoxin resistance in it.
It has to, we're doing a lot of work with fungicides, looking at application methods. We're doing a lot of work with post-harvest strategies, but the best way to combat this disease and the toxin associated with it is in the field.
You know, I've often said that we could probably manage this with things other than genetics, but there's no way to really solve this. And by solve it, I mean bring it back to just sort of a nuisance problem as opposed to an absolute horrific problem like we've had in Ohio before. And so we can't do that without genetics being a part of this total solution that we're looking for. For now, though, we do have the risk predictor tool, which is something that we've been very proud of that you've helped to create to give farmers early information about your risk level in a certain year. Can you talk about where that tool's at right now and how farmers may use that this summer?
We developed this thanks to resources from the Ohio Corn and Wheat starting in 2015, actually. In other words, we were getting ahead of the game because we saw this coming as a problem, and we appreciate the fact that the board provided support for us to get an early start in developing this tool. Now it's deployed, and we've had more data over the last several years. We've got an additional set of 1,300 data points, again, through collaborations with the board and stakeholders. We've got an additional 1,300 data points to validate and test, refine, and post the model. But the model is on the web, and the model tells you the likelihood or the risk or the chance of vomitoxin exceeding 1 part per million. In other words, we use a very tight threshold because we really, really want to catch this and make a decision early. And we use information before silking to make that prediction. Why silking? Silking is the growth stage at which the fungus infects, and vomitoxin becomes a major problem if conditions are wet and humid during silking. So again, some of the earlier work we did with support from the board, we understand what are the weather drivers of this disease. We use that information, put it in a model, and we've got predictors that are about 80% accurate. So the tool can be used on the web. Choose your silking date. Once you enter that information along with your GPS coordinator of your field, it gives you a risk in terms of a percentage. Obviously, 90% chance is a high chance, 10%, 30%, so that you get an idea of what the risk is. The decision you can make, apply a fungicide. That's why we make that prediction early before silking, so that a fungicide can be applied.
In a year like this, when margins are this thin, farmers may be thinking, well, maybe I could save on this. But if this tool informs them they are at high risk of vomitoxin come harvest during silking, that's early information that they have, and they can use that information to go ahead and invest in a fungicide application.
And I know the question keeps coming up about fungicides for other disease control. Some of the timing for fungicide application for late season disease control are not going to give you the best results for vomitoxin control. That's why the risk tool is so important. If vomitoxin is your primary risk in a given year, then your fungicide choice and your application timing should be made based on vomitoxin, because it can hurt your crop more than any of the late season diseases.
Seems like Ohio has been kind of all alone in this whole fight against vomitoxin. The disease is really isolated here in Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan, but we do know that it's moving. And so it's been an important development that's come up over the past year to develop at the National Corn Growers Association a mycotoxin mitigation center of excellence. And so there's only two legs to this mycotoxin mitigation center of excellence, and that's vomitoxin and aflatoxin. So we have been very important in creating that vomitoxin leg. What it's done is allowed other states to contribute as well to vomitoxin research, not just relying on Ohio Corn Checkoff. It's also been an important development that we've had a federal appropriations for vomitoxin research through ARS, and that's a really important thing. There's a much bigger team of people out there working on this and pooling dollars together. What has that cooperation meant to you as a researcher who's been at this for a long time? What does that cooperation mean to the future of your research?
Some of the other states are where we used to be 10 years ago. In other words, it's not a problem there now, but they're looking at us, and they're looking at us, and they're looking at the trends, and they're interested. So even though they're not as impacted by vomitoxin like we are, or Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, they are interested because they're looking at the trends, and most of my colleagues know exactly what the likelihood. And it's important to get everybody on board. And part of this center of excellence is to bring all the brain power together, bring expertise together from industry, from university. Ohio State has very good expertise, but we can lean on and collaborate with others. What it does, it gives us opportunity to shorten the time to finding an answer and solution. In other words, the more people you integrate in the effort, the more resources we have to share and to provide funding for others to do vomitoxin research in their state, the shorter time it's going to take for us to get good results and answer major questions. For example, if we were to do it in Ohio alone, one bad year means an entire year without data. If you do it across multiple locations and years, then you're always going to get useful data from some location to help mitigate the problem. That's the importance of a center of excellence like this. I really, really value that.
You know, a lot of the other states have looked at us with this risk predictor tool with quite a bit of envy. It's worth noting to our listeners, it's only calibrated for Ohio right now because we've been putting all these samples in there. Maybe some of the other states will start putting samples in as well, and we can better calibrate that tool for their states. But talk about this tool one more time with for our listeners and viewers about the timing of this. So if we got on there right now, let's say a grower went right now to the tool, it's going to be prior to silking. So what kind of information are they going to be finding out today, and when is the best time for them to really put a note in their calendar they need to go back to this tool and check it?
Just like you do with fungicide applications, look at V18, the 18 leaf stage, just before you get tasseling. That's your time to start focusing on vomitoxin. Like Todd said, sometimes what we do with these tools is prevent it from being functional before it's useful, in other words. But it's there and it's available. And if you put information in now, it's probably going to give you results that don't make sense on anything that you can use. So really target that late vegetative stage into silking. That's when you want to start to look at it. And what I always recommend folks to do, if you've got multiple fields, handle each field separately. Don't assume that you've got a field across the road if the planting date is different, if the hybrid silking date is different. You have to handle it separately. That's why the tool allows you to put in GPS coordinates for your given field, as well as the hybrid information, hybrid silking date. You can have the same hybrid in 5 different fields, planted at different times. Those have different silking date. Don't use the risk for one location, one field as evidence of what's going to happen in the other field. The opposite is also true. You might have 2 hybrids planted on the same date, but in different fields. You have to look at the environment because the model goes down and pull the environmental data associated with the GPS coordinates. One field 2 miles down the road might have more favorable conditions, even though the planting date is the same and the hybrid is the same. V18. V18, as you get close to silk, turn your vomitoxin prediction radar on, look at the tool.
Excellent. Thanks, Dr. Paul. Appreciate you being with us today. Thanks for everything that you and your entire team are doing at Ohio State. We look forward to checking back with you as the season progresses.
Thanks for your support, and we look forward to fighting this together.
Farming isn't just a job. It's the foundation of life. Farmers feed us, fuel our future, and pass down traditions built on hope and hard work. At Farm Credit Mid-America, we know farming is more than a profession. It's a legacy. That's why we stand shoulder to shoulder with farmers, offering agricultural loans, insurance, and education. Because we're not just here for farmers, we're owned by them. Farming matters, and we're proud to honor it every day.
Ohio Corn and Wheat, working on behalf of farmers.
Ohio Corn and Wheat has some vital roles in helping the profitability of Ohio corn farmers.
Ohio Corn and Wheat's role in creating the next generation of successful farmers is bringing those farmers together.
It's important for farmers all across Ohio to get involved with Ohio Corn and Wheat just because they are farmer-led and it lets our voice be heard.
Experience the Ohio Corn and Wheat Growers Association. Join or renew your membership now at ohiocornandwheat.org.
Well, that's a wrap for this edition of Kernels. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel so you always stay up to date. You can also follow us on Facebook and our other social media channels for more great content and conversations.